The Columbus Crew keep hammering away at their critics and guys like us who are waiting for the fall.
Oh, Greg, I hate their logo. I think it's ridiculous, but I really like their team.
Well, it's Buck a Brat night here on Extra Time next. Well, yellow is the new black in MLS. Welcome to ET, everyone. Greg Lawless and Shep Messing here with you. This week, we're going to sift through the rumors about a few Yanks who might be on their way home from Europe. And we'll also play a new game that we call This Guy or That Guy. Basically, we'll make some hypothetical choices among players. But Shep, let's start with the game of the week. Columbus beating San Jose 3-2 out in California.
Greg, if you ask any coach in Major League Soccer, the greatest thing for them is to be on the road, down a goal, come back and get a victory. That's a huge win for Columbus.
In fact, it's the first win of any team that hasn't scored the first goal. It was actually the Crew's fifth win in a row. The star was Robbie Rogers, who scored 2 goals. He now has 5 goals on the season. Now, Shep, you've been a critic of his so far this year, but he looked pretty impressive over the weekend.
Greg, I have. I've been critical of his lack of work rate, but I'm not critical about the way he's playing. He's playing extremely well. Siggy Schmidt made a great point. Peter Novak cut him from the Olympic qualifiers, and Siggy Schmidt said, Robbie Rogers, that's motivation to go out and try and win a spot.
Well, it certainly is. If he wants to get to Beijing, he has to keep doing this. Do you think he has enough to get that spot on the team?
Well, I think it's between 2 players. Remember, Arturo Alvarez, really the same spot. He's playing well too, so Robbie Rogers, he's got to continue.
Well, he certainly does. And the role players, the supporting cast out there in Columbus, they're doing its job, but the marquee still belongs to Guillermo Barros Schelotto and our friend Alejandro Moreno. Barros Schelotto looks like he's found a fountain of youth out there in the Sayada River. He's active and creative and oozing attitude and fun, and he's built a marvelous rapport with Moreno.
Greg, there was a question whether or not Schelotto was going to come back, return to the Columbus Crew. Not only has he returned, he's playing great. He's the catalyst for everything they do. He's making the teammates around him better. The question is, can he last the full season?
Brings up a good point about Columbus's depth. Adam Moffat, who had a fantastic start in his first full season in Columbus, he's out with a knee injury. Duncan Outen is still out. And if one of the back 4 goes down, I'd be a little worried, and you have to tighten up your tool belt really tight.
I agree with you, Greg. And add to the mix, Brian Carroll. I think he's been playing well. That's allowed Danny O'Rourke to go back as a central defender, so they cannot afford injuries.
What do you see of their prospects going forward right now? Can they keep this up throughout the season?
I really think they can. They're all on the same page, and it's really an example when the sum, the total performance, it's really greater than the individual parts. I give the credit to Siggy Schmidt.
Well, it's been a couple of bad years for Columbus, but Ziggy has them playing well. On the other hand, there's San Jose, which is having all kinds of attacking problems coming into this game. 5 shutouts in their first 6 matches, and then they go and get 2 goals. Is this a blip, or is this a sign of good things to come out there for the Earthquakes?
Well, unfortunately for San Jose, I think it's a blip. When your most dangerous attacking player, Ronnie O'Brien, is a wide right midfielder, I think you're in trouble. They need an attacking playmaker, and I think they need a big-time striker.
Any ideas for a big-time striker that might be interesting?
Oh, great ideas. Shevchenko, Thierry Henry.
Well, I doubt Shevchenko is going to make it to San Jose, but if the Earthquakes can put a couple of wins together, they might get right back into the mix in the weaker Western Conference. An active weekend not only in MLS, but also around the world, which means we're going to rack up some frequent flyer miles in this edition of News and Notes. It also has a decidedly attacking feel to it, Shep.
No goalkeepers, Greg?
No goalkeepers or something like that. This past weekend, Juan Pablo Angel and Taylor Twellman both opened their accounts. Good news for New York and New England. And in Houston, Brian Ching and Dwayne De Rosario finally snagged their first goals of the season. But with the European leagues ending, there are rumors buzzing around about the future of some Yanks over in Europe, most notably Brian McBride. Where is he going to end up?
Chicago, Greg. And I'll tell you what, if you look at the perfect player for that Chicago Fire team, if they can get Brian McBride, I think they go to MLS Cup final. Remember, his family is from the Chicago area, and I can just see him linking up with Blanco looking for him, Chris Ralph tucked in behind. He's the perfect player for them.
Well, there's nothing done right now, but it is a rumor out there. And another former Chicago player, Josh Wolf, his name is also being kicked around as a possible target for MLS teams. And Shep, here are a few names that I'd like to see someone in the league chase. Bobby Convey. He's almost certainly leaving Reading now that they've been relegated. Eddie Lewis and Benny Feilhaber out in Derby County, they need to get out of there faster than Andy Dufresne needed to get out of Shawshank.
I'll make the argument that for Benny Feilhaber, he's got to come back. Remember, he scored that great goal, U.S. against Mexico in the Gold Cup, but his journey to Europe has been an absolute disaster. He's got to come back here and re-energize his game.
Any particular team you think he could fit in with?
I think he could really fit in with any team. He has extremely good ability, technical skill on the ball. A lot of teams could use him.
How about this one? Clint Mathis. His Greek team, Ergotelis, they avoided relegation, but Clint barely played anyway. I mean, come on, Clint. I know the Souvlaki's good, but don't you want to start playing again? I can confirm that Los Angeles has talked to his people about possibly coming back, but nothing's done. I personally would love to see Cletus unleashed on the league again.
You have to be kidding me. I love.
It would be awesome.
I love Cletus, but not to LA. That's the
Okay.
last player in the world they need. So yes, Clint Mathis, come back, let LA sign him and trade him to somebody who needs his attacking skill.
Well, here's a player that I think a lot of teams would love to have. He's a defender actually in Europe. I'd love to see him in an MLS uniform again. Corey Gibbs. He told me actually about a month ago he doesn't feel like he's really in Charlton's plans anymore. And if that's true and he's healthy again, he would automatically transform any defense in the league into something like an iron wall, and I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, I like him as a player. He's got all the physical tools. I think he could help his career by coming to Major League Soccer. I'll throw another one in. Danny Zatella. I mean, once a promising superstar, his journey first to Racing Santander, put him on loan to Brescia. It's been an absolute disaster. He needs to come back.
And he certainly needs to do that to start playing again with the Olympics coming up, because Peter Novak's going to want to take him, but he's going to want him in form. Now, a player on this side of the pond that people are talking about, Wilman Conde. The Chicago Fire defender's saga continues. Here's the Reader's Digest quick version of it. In the offseason, he demanded a trade to New York so he could play for Juan Carlos Osorio, his mentor, who moved to New York. Chicago said no and then basically put him in the doghouse. I say good for them, but now they're willing to deal Conde, just not to an Eastern Conference team.
Greg, what are you, a management guy now? I'm a player guy. I feel badly for Conde. Came here specifically to play for Juan Carlos Osorio. I do think Chicago's in the driver's seat. I understand them not wanting to let him to go to New York, but I think the guy needs to move on.
Personally, I think the team is more important than any one player. You come here and you play for a team, but aside from that, any teams out in the West you think he could fit in with?
Well, you look at some of the teams. Chivas has been decimated in the back, lost Jonathan Bornstein, Suarez banged up. They got Talley, but they can certainly use a player like that.
Yeah, Kerry Talley traded this week from Real Salt Lake to Chivas. That'll shore up the defense back there. Another team perhaps for Conde, the Los Angeles Galaxy, whose defense really let them down again this past weekend. Last week, we put DC United's Ben Olsen on the spot by asking him whether he'd rather see Marcelo Gallardo or Christian Gomez in the DC midfield. He did a good job of not really picking either one and sort of playing both sides of the fence, but it got us thinking about some other hypothetical choices that we might have to make. It's something we are going to now call this guy or that guy. So, Shep, we'll start with a couple of young midfielders, Arturo Alvarez or Robbie Rogers, a couple guys we talked about earlier in the show.
Greg, here's the choice. Do you want a guy with anger management issues, or do you want a guy that maybe you question his work rate? I take the anger management. I think Arturo Alvarez is unbelievable on the ball, can skin you on the dribble, and I take him, although I really like how Robbie Rogers is playing.
Rogers certainly playing really well, but I agree with you about Alvarez. He's very sharp, and in tight spaces, he's very, very dangerous. Now let's look at some strikers here, right? Taylor Twellman or Juan Pablo Angel, probably the two biggest named strikers in the league.
That is difficult. I'm going with Juan Pablo Angel, Greg, and I'll tell you why. Taylor Twellman has been fantastic, but physically, I really give the edge to Juan Pablo Angel. A little bigger, a little stronger, a little taller. Both great players, but I'd go with Angel.
Well, I will actually go with Taylor Twellman on this one, and my decision is based on actually some of the other things that Twellman brings. The defensive work rate that he brings in, and his checking back to the ball is improving. His age is also a little bit of something in there. Now, let's move to an even tougher one. We're going to go to a couple of attacking midfielders, Dwayne De Rosario or Landon Donovan.
I'm going to shock the world. I'm taking Landon Donovan in a heartbeat. I like De Rosario. You know, he can smack a ball, hit a free kick, can run at people, but I don't think you can compare the way he's playing to the play of Landon Donovan. Donovan has been fantastic.
Yeah, Donovan, obviously the most dangerous player in the league. They both have won championships, so that's sort of a wash right there. So I agree with you. I would go with Landon Donovan. But let's look at some defensive players again. Frankie Haydock or Chance Myers? You have the old wily veteran and the young rookie out in Kansas City.
I like them both, and I'll tell you, I think Chance Myers is going to have a very good career in Major League Soccer. But I go with the veteran, Frankie Haydock. He still defends like a maniac. He still overlaps and gets into the attack. He gets my choice.
Well, I think this one's more situational or contextual. If you're trying to build a team, you'd probably go with Chance Myers. If you want a team to win right now, Frankie Haydock, and he's having a fantastic season, Frankie. All right, we're going to go with the big one now. This is the huge one, the DP choice. David Beckham or Cuauhtemoc Blanco?
Greg, 6 months ago, it would have been a no-brainer for me. But the way Blanco has played this season, the guy is unreal. He's got the ability on the ball, can go to goal, makes his teammates better. And Beckham, well, Beckham can hit a ball with pinpoint accuracy. His free kicks, the way he helps his team. I think they're even.
You got to make a choice.
I give the edge to Beckham because of Posh, his wife.
Well, that's a good reason right there. I'm actually going to go with Cuauhtemoc Blanco because I love the fact that this little hunchback guy can run around and all of a sudden he's scoring terrific goals. But let's be honest, these are all hypothetical questions. Luckily, none of the MLS teams really have to make this decision. It's also these are choices of luxury, sort of, Hall and Oates or lobster and steak, that kind of thing. There actually is one coach who might have to make some of these decisions. Peter Novak, the Olympic team coach, Arturo Alvarez, Robbie Rogers. We talked about it. But Beckham and Blanco is certainly a good one, especially this week because Beckham didn't have a good game. Blanco had a terrific game, and I think he might have done enough to have you dreaming about the word wow while you were watching that game.
We watched a lot of soccer this weekend. My moment was Blanco. Coming out of the midfield, didn't look dangerous. All of a sudden, bang! That's my wow moment. No chance for Zach Wells. That's a fantastic goal.
I'm going to take you to task a little bit. No chance for Zach Wells. He did get a hand on it.
He did well just to get a hand to it. I don't think any goalkeeper stops that shot.
Well, Blanco on a roll. The Chicago Fire on a roll. They're still behind the Columbus Crew, though, who started off the show. As we said, yellow is the new black here in MLS. If you have any questions or comments or any criticisms for us, email us at extratime@mlsnet.com. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for ET this week, but join us next week, and Shep and I will be here, and we'll take it around.